Good morning, everybody. Jim Feist in Las Vegas, Joe Mac in New York. Welcome back, Joe. How's your week going?
Going good, Jim. Looking forward to a big weekend. Got more than a handful of really nice, high-profile college games. And obviously, after week one of the NFL, everyone always tends to overreact. And we're going to find out maybe if some of these teams that were surprises last week or disappointments, we're going to see if they turn the beat around. But we got a lot of NFL teams that are 0-1 that are chewing their nails and a little nervous here that an 0-2 start might sink them. So
now, have they given the New York Jets and Sam Darnold the Super Bowl trophy yet?
You must be reading my mind because I'm writing tomorrow's column for Jim Says for the Jim Hurley Network, and I wrote that. I said, geez, you would think from all the coverage you got from the tabloids and the talk radio that the Jets won their first Super Bowl in 50 years. But, hey, the kid, after that throw, which, was like amateur hour, to throw it across the field to get picked off for a pick six, I mean, the kid looked very good. But they, the media just overblew everything. I mean, he looked good, he looked sharp, he looked poised. But, I mean, they got to cool it, To me, he wasn't even the biggest story of the game. The Jets' defense and special teams were. But, after you've gone through years of the quarterbacks that the Jets have gone through, we can sit here and name them all, Browning, Nagel, and Pat Ryan. You can come up with all these names. The Jets fans are just clamoring for, what they think is the next Joe Namath. So they've had a fun week, but they're going to be tested by the Dolphins Sunday, that's for sure.
Yeah, they will. That's a division game, and it's a big game. They're favored in the game, which is, they're 2.5, 3-point favorite in that game right now. And the Jets, well, like I said, it's a division game. These teams fight really hard for division games. They're very important games in the final analysis for who makes the playoffs. So the game open pick is now up to the Jets 2.5 or 3. Interesting game. Anything anything that happened this week that you really want to dig into?
Well, you and I, before the show started, were just chatting about the first-time head coaches in the NFL going 0-7 straight up. The only guy that got a cover was Matt Nagy with the Bears, and let's face it, he didn't exactly handle the fourth quarter very well in that rather epic loss to Green Bay. And, it may be something that depends on the personal viewpoint and everything. I think you feel like, it's a game that eventually they'll get over. And let's face it, it's a long season. They might be over it by Monday night when they host Seattle. I just have a feeling that when you lose a game where you're up multiple, 3 touchdowns and you're playing a team that has really kind of dominated you through the years, I think that's something that kind of sticks to your gut for a while. I'm hoping I don't root against or on the Bears. I'm hoping that they have a nice season just because they showed me by acquiring Khalil Mack. I mean, they showed their whole organization. They were, pushing all their chips into the middle of the table, as they like to say. So, I like when teams do that. I like when teams are a little bold and daring. They gave up an awful lot to get him. So they believe their time is now, or at least going into next year. But that's a tough loss, and sometimes NFL teams have a short memory. Sometimes games can stick with them for a month or so. So we're going to see what the Bears are all about in primetime Monday against, as you and I both know, a Seattle team that is far, far inferior to the Super Bowl teams we witnessed a handful of years ago.
Well, absolutely. This is that was a big division game, first of all. And division games are more important than non-division games when it comes down to playoff situations. And now they're playing at home against a non-division opponent in Seattle, and they're favored. And Seattle, like you said, they're not the same team, but they got the same quarterback. And in my book, Russell Wilson is in the top 5 best quarterbacks in the league playing him. And none of the others play with an offensive line as nearly as poor as what he plays with. So it's a very dangerous opponent. They come home off that terrible defeat, and they're both off a defeat because Seattle opened up at Denver, and Denver has a pretty good defense. They put up a fight there. And it's tough. It's a tough situation. The Bears aren't used to being favored. and they're coming off that loss. You got a young quarterback and a young coach against Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson. Tough spot.
It's definitely a tough spot, and when you think about it, I mean, you come off the Packers, and I'm just checking something out here. You go back the last 10 years, and the Bears have lost. Now, this is not against the number, but just straight up, the Bears going into last week had lost 16 of their last 20 to the Packers. So let's face it, they are used to getting their nose pushed in the dirt by Green Bay for a long, long time, and then you got a 20-point lead, and you've got Khalil Mack playing, out of his mind football, and you somehow blow it. I don't know. I think it's going to be a while before they get over this, and we're going to have to see. But as you said, it's a tricky spot, too, for the Bears. Laying points, another primetime game against a quarterback like Russell Wilson, who last week did everything in his power to hang in there in Denver. I mean, every time he looked up, Von Miller was coming out of the corner of his eye and jumping on him. So I give Russell Wilson a lot of credit. I mean, he's going to go down in history, unfortunately, as throwing maybe the worst pass in Super Bowl history. Not all that was his fault because it was a play that was called, but he is a champion in my book. I mean, he's always been. He played last year with injuries all year. He's a tough kid, and he's a champ. And, hey, you know what? I'm sure there's a lot of people salivating over the thought of taking a field goal or more with them this week, even though, as you said, their offensive line is nothing. Their secondary is worn thin, and it's not the Seattle team that we grew to either love or hate 5 years ago. But still, with Russell Wilson, you never, ever give up hope with a team with a play like that.
Yeah, well, there's a lot going on in sports. You got baseball right down to the wire. Baseball, the playoffs will be starting in a couple of weeks. You got the NFL, of course you got college football. Right around the corner, of course, we got the NBA and then college hoops. It's just a monster time for sports. Is there anything, and I'll let you lead the way, that you want to talk about and cover that you really want to take off on?
Well, we talked a little bit about the weekend in college football. Now, last weekend did not have a whole lot of high-profile games, but I'll tell you what, you got some nice ones here. Now, I know Ohio State, number 4 team in the country, or number 5, depending on the polls, they're laying 12.5, 13 at TCU. That could be a very dangerous game for the Buckeyes. TCU's athletic. They're pretty physical. They've been pointing to this team for a while. Last week, they started out that game. You could tell they were asleep at the wheel against SMU. I don't know who's going to cover it here, but TCU is a dangerous team that is not going to be afraid to chuck the ball around, too. I'm not saying they have the athletes to stay with Ohio State for 60 minutes, but I'll tell you what, if they get in the lead, and again, it's not Urban Meyer on the sideline, right? It's Ryan Day, offensive coordinator, interim coach, could make a difference. So that's a fun game. But, it's going to really be interesting to see what you wind up getting in a couple other games where a team like Boise State that has hopes of maybe going undefeated. They're on the road for a big game against Oklahoma State in the daytime. I have to think Boise is probably the best of the non-power conference teams, but to me, they have to prove it. And just a lot of other games. You've got Notre Dame, who people are hyping up, but they better get their quarterback situation straightened out. Brandon Whitbush, for me, he's not prime-time quarterback, and you're laying 14 points, 13.5 points against a Vanderbilt team that might be a little bit better than anyone thinks. So there's 3 games out of the box where, it's not number 1 versus number 2 in the country. You don't have any of those kind of matchups. We've had some of those the last few years out of the gate. Obviously, this year we had Washington, Auburn, a couple of top 10 teams out of the gate. But these are nice, juicy matchups. Dogs might be worth looking at, and certainly if folks are interested in banging out some winners, they can do it with the Jim Hurley Network at 1-800-323-4453. That's 1-800-323-4453, or get them online at jimhurley.com. So we're off to a great, great start in college football, and we're looking to keep that up.
That's good stuff, Joe. You mentioned a couple teams that I think we should touch on. Washington visits Utah this week, and they're favored, and LSU goes to Auburn. And the amazing thing about that Auburn line, opened 8, it's up to 10.5.
Now, that surprised me, Jim. I'll tell you, listen, I watched LSU play that opening night against Miami. They did everything right. And I think they're a decent team. They're a legit top 15 type of team. But this is a big, tall number here. I mean, Auburn getting a lot of respect, maybe too much respect, but that's an SEC game that, you won't really be surprised if it becomes a knock 'em out, drag 'em out affair down the stretch. I'm a little surprised by the number. It's probably a game I'm going to stay away from, but an interesting one. And you touched on Washington. They're laying a handful at Utah. Their quarterback, Washington, Jake Browning, his knee is a little wobbly these days. He did not like his performance last week in one of those throw-out type of games. He did not look good in that game we mentioned against Auburn. I'm wondering if he's 100% these days. I'm reading that he's not. I think Washington's a little afraid right now that this team is not quite as good as they thought. And I'm starting to get the feeling 3 weeks into the season that Stanford is going to be the class of the Pac-12 and not Washington. But let's see how they do here in this game. Tricky spot, too. This Utah team, I know they burned people last week in terms of the spread because the number went up. But this Utah team also, one of those teams that can be very dangerous taking points over the years.
Definitely, absolutely. Joe, anything you want to touch on baseball? I mean, we've got some races there that are pretty amazing.
Yeah.
We got...
No, we do. Yeah, we do. I mean, we keep talking. Every time we talk about the NL West. It's starting to look like Arizona is fading out. And I'll tell you one thing. I give the Rockies all the credit in the world. I mean, Trevor Story looks like he might be the MVP of the league right now. He keeps hitting a big homer every night, either he or LeMahieu or Arenado. I mean, they are a tough bunch, and they haven't always gotten great bullpen work this year, but they've overcome it. And they might be the class of that division after all. Arizona's bullpen just completely has fallen apart down the stretch. They can't find a closer. Their eighth-inning guy is failing them. They look to be in trouble. And the Dodgers, who I thought all along was going to win the West, I mean, they just had it. They got to win last night. Kershaw didn't pitch well, but they got to win in St. Louis. They've got to really win 3 out of 4 this weekend in St. Louis. But they disappointed me. I mean, they never kind of picked up and took off after the Machado trade. And, again, in that division, the one team that I tip my hat to is Colorado. They played winning baseball, and the other teams have staggered around. And right now, I guess I would not be surprised if Colorado's left standing at the end. I still don't think they're a threat to get into the World Series. To me, it's still the Cubs, but we talked about the Braves last week with all that young talent. Who knows? Maybe they don't know any better and they'll get to the Fall Classic. But got a lot of exciting baseball, and a couple of pennant races have fallen apart. But you still got, some the wild card chase in the NL is, really looks like it's going to go right down to the wire.
Yeah, Oakland has had a hell of a year. I don't think anybody expected that. They're battling for the wild card, and of course, Houston is, still top notch. They're still a world champs, and so if somebody knocks them off, the Yankees are probably a wild card opponent there for Oakland. I gotta just mention that the job that Tampa Bay has done. I mean, first of all, they start their bullpen, so in many, which is an amazing cash. The manager there has done a remarkable job. They got one pitcher there that is absolutely outstanding pitcher in Snell.
Right.
He's just an absolutely amazing pitcher, and so I mean that's hats off to them. They're not going to go anywhere. They're not going to make the playoffs, but boy, they are dangerous. I wouldn't want to face them if I was in the playoffs at this point. But it's been an incredible year for them, and hats off to them. And Joe, thank you very much for your time today, your insight. Always look forward to our conversation. Everybody out there, thank you for listening. And again, my plays are up at jimfeist.com. And Joe, you're with the Jim Hurley Network, Jim Hurley Sports. I think it's jimhurley.com or jimhurleysports.com. And you have a phone number you want to give out. You want to do that again?
Sure, yes. It's jimhurley.com if you want to get the picks online for a big winning weekend in both the college and the pros and in baseball, too. Otherwise, the toll-free number is 1-800-323-4453. That's 1-800-323-4453. 888-445-3. You're right. We not only have the football, we got the baseball this weekend, and we've done pretty well in it. So we're going to head down the stretch and try to get winners all around. So let's have a big weekend.
Absolutely. We have the playoffs coming up, and I want to remind everybody, please hit the subscribe button on YouTube and let everybody know that you like what we're doing, and that helps us a lot. So thank you, Joe, and thank you, everybody out there, for listening.